Imagine a farmer standing in the middle of his field, holding a bag of seeds. The land stretches before him, empty yet full of potential. He reaches into the bag and begins to scatter the seeds. Some fall on fertile soil, some on rocky ground, some among thorns. He does not see the results immediately. He must wait. Days, weeks, months pass, and then the harvest comes. What he has sown, he now reaps. Now, my friend, I ask you, what seeds have you been sowing? Have you planted kindness, truth, integrity, and faithfulness? Or have you scattered seeds of deception, anger, selfishness, and greed? Because, whether you realize it or not, your harvest is coming. The world we live in operates on divine laws, and one of the most unshakable is this: you will reap what you sow. You cannot plant an apple seed and expect oranges. You cannot sow hatred and expect love. You cannot spread dishonesty and expect people to trust you. It is a law written by God Himself, unchangeable, undeniable, and inescapable. Yet, how often do we deceive ourselves? How often do we believe that our actions will go unnoticed, that our sins will be forgotten, that we can escape the consequences of our choices? Paul warns us in Galatians 6:7, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." This verse is a warning, but it is also a promise. It tells us that no action goes unseen, no word is without weight, no decision is without consequence. If you sow righteousness, you will reap blessings. If you sow sin, you will reap suffering. This is not a human law, this is a divine law. It does not bend for status, it does not change for wealth, and it does not waver for power. It is as true for the weak as it is for the strong, for the poor as it is for the rich, for the unknown as it is for the famous. No one escapes it. But here's the deception. People believe that because the consequences do not come immediately, they will never come. They think that because they have lied and not been caught, they have won. They think that because they have hurt others and faced no punishment, they are free. But God cannot be mocked. The man who sows dishonesty in his business will one day find himself surrounded by betrayal. The woman who sows bitterness in her relationships will one day wake up alone. The leader who sows corruption will one day stand in disgrace. It is only a matter of time. My friend, time is the great revealer of all things. What you plant in secret will be revealed in the harvest. If you have planted good, your harvest will be sweet. If you have planted evil, your harvest will be bitter. But here is the hope. If you do not like the seeds you have sown in the past, you can start planting new seeds today. God is a God of justice, but He is also a God of mercy. He gives us time, not to continue in wrongdoing, but to repent, to change, to start again. So today, as you hear this message, ask yourself, what kind of harvest am I preparing for? Because the harvest always comes. There is a great deception that runs through the hearts of men. It whispers in secret, telling people that they can act without consequences, that they can live without accountability, that they can sin without punishment. It is the voice that says, no one will know. It is the lie that says, you can get away with it. But God cannot be mocked. Many people believe that because justice is not immediate, it will never come. They mistake delay for absence, but the wheels of divine justice turn, even when they seem slow to our human eyes. The liar believes that because his deception is not exposed today, it will never be revealed. The thief believes that because he has not been caught yet, he will never be found out. The adulterer believes that because their betrayal remains hidden, it will stay in darkness. But truth has a way of rising, like the sun piercing through the night. Look at history. Look at the lives of those who built their kingdoms on lies and corruption. They all fell. No man who mocked God by sowing wickedness ever reaped peace. Their downfall may have taken years, but when it came, it was unstoppable. Pharaoh, who enslaved God's people, mocked God's authority and refused to change his ways. But did he escape? No. The same waters that he used to oppress Israel became the flood that drowned his army. Haman, who conspired against Mordecai, built gallows to destroy an innocent man. But did he escape? No. The same gallows he built for his enemy became his own death sentence. Judas, who betrayed Jesus, thought that he was clever, that he could profit from deception. But did he escape? No. His own guilt consumed him, and his life ended in ruin. Do you see the pattern? God is not mocked, and yet, in every generation, men and women continue to believe that they can plant wickedness and somehow avoid a bitter harvest. They continue to sow dishonesty, hatred, greed, and pride, believing that they are above the law of sowing and reaping. But you cannot escape divine law. Imagine a man who jumps off a building, believing he can defy gravity. He may be confident, he may even smile on the way down, but no matter how much he denies it, the law of gravity remains. The impact is inevitable. So it is with the law of sowing and reaping. You cannot mock God and expect to go unpunished. The seeds of sin do not disappear. They grow, they take root, and one day they bear fruit. But let us not only look at the negative side of this law, for just as sin brings destruction, righteousness brings reward. The person who sows kindness will find kindness returning to them. The one who sows generosity will one day receive abundance. The one who sows integrity will walk in peace. This is why Paul urges us in the very next verse, Galatians 6:9, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." You may not see the results today. You may wonder if your sacrifices are worth it. You may ask, why should I keep doing what is right when others prosper in wickedness? But remember, the harvest always comes. A farmer does not plant a seed today and expect a tree tomorrow. There is a season of waiting, of growing, of unseen transformation beneath the soil. And then, in the appointed time, the harvest arrives. So, do not be deceived. If you have been planting good, trust in the process. Your reward is coming. If you have been planting evil, understand this: it is never too late to change, but you must change before the harvest arrives, because when it comes, there will be no escape. There is a belief that if no one sees a deed, it has no consequences. People convince themselves that their actions in secret will never be exposed, that what is done in darkness will never be brought to the light. But that is one of the greatest lies ever told. Jesus himself warned in Luke 8:17, "For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Nothing remains buried forever. Every hidden act, whether righteous or sinful, will eventually be revealed, because God's timing is perfect. Look at the world around you. Scandals that were covered for years eventually surface. Corrupt leaders who lived in luxury eventually fall. People who built their lives on deception eventually watch their empires crumble. Why? Because no sin goes unnoticed by God. When someone mistreats others in secret, they may believe they have escaped judgment, but time is the great revealer of all things. Think of a seed buried underground. It is unseen for a while, but beneath the surface it is growing, changing, preparing to break through the soil. So it is with actions, good or bad. A man who secretly lies and cheats may believe he is winning, but one day his lies will destroy him. A woman who slanders others behind their backs may think she is safe, but one day her own words will return to haunt her. A leader who abuses power may seem untouchable, but when God's appointed time arrives, they will be brought low. Everything done in darkness will be revealed in the light. Biblical examples of God's justice in his timing. There are countless examples in Scripture of hidden actions being exposed in God's perfect time. David and Bathsheba. David, a man after God's own heart, allowed temptation to lead him into sin. He committed adultery with Bathsheba and then arranged for her husband to be killed in battle to cover up his sin. For a while, it seemed that no one knew, but God saw everything. When the prophet Nathan confronted David, his sin was exposed and the consequences were severe. Joseph's brothers. They thought they could sell their brother into slavery and never face the consequences. For years they lived with their secret. But when famine struck and they had to stand before Joseph, the brother they betrayed, they realized their hidden sin had not been forgotten. Ananias and Sapphira. They tried to deceive the apostles and God himself by lying about their offering. They thought they could get away with dishonesty, but their secret sin was exposed instantly and judgment came upon them. God's timing is not man's timing. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that if judgment does not come immediately, it will never come. They confuse delayed consequence, but God's justice is not limited to human understanding of time. Some sins are exposed quickly. Some take years to surface. Some are revealed only at the end of a person's life. Some will only be judged before God's throne. But make no mistake, every action, every word, every hidden thought will be brought to account. What about righteousness? Just as sin does not go unnoticed, goodness and faithfulness do not go unnoticed either. The prayers you pray in secret will be answered in the open. The kindness you show when no one is watching will be rewarded in due time. The sacrifices you make for God will not be forgotten. God is not only a judge, he is a rewarder of those who seek him. Matthew 6:6. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Whatever you have been planting in secret will one day be seen by the world. So ask yourself today, what am I planting? What will my harvest look like when my hidden actions come to light? Because the revelation always comes. There is a temptation in all of us to believe that justice is something we can measure, something we can predict. We expect it to be swift, to be obvious, to match the offense in a way that satisfies our sense of fairness. When we see the wicked prosper, when we see good men crushed under the weight of hardship, we begin to wonder, is there justice at all? But justice is not ours to dictate. It was never meant to fit inside the narrow frame of human understanding. We live in a world where consequences appear inconsistent. A man cheats his way to wealth and enjoys a long life. Another toils in honesty and dies poor. A cruel word ruins a reputation in an instant, but a lifetime of kindness is forgotten with ease. If justice were left to the patterns of this world, it would be unbearable. But the justice of God is not like that of men. The law of sowing and reaping does not merely function on the level of human affairs. It extends beyond, into the unseen. A man may escape punishment in this life, but he does not escape the reality of what he has planted. When a man sows dishonesty, he does not merely risk exposure. He corrupts his own soul. With every lie, he reshapes his heart into something that fears truth. With every act of selfishness, he turns himself into someone incapable of receiving real love. It is a mistake to think that judgment always takes the form of visible ruin. Sometimes, judgment is the slow destruction of a soul that no longer recognizes itself. A person may live to old age, free from earthly consequences, but inside he has become something smaller, something weaker, something eaten from within. The seeds he planted have grown, and he is left with the bitter fruit. This is why the justice of God is so often misunderstood. We look for it in what happens to a man. God enacts it in what a man becomes. The one who plants corruption is not simply punished, he decays. The one who sows goodness does not merely receive a reward, he is transformed. This is what makes the law of sowing and reaping so absolute. It does not wait for permission. It does not ask if we are ready. It is not concerned with whether or not we recognize it. It moves forward, silently, inevitably, shaping us according to what we have sown. And so we must ask ourselves, what am I becoming? We expect justice to come like a hammer, swift and final, but often it comes as a slow unraveling. The proud man finds that his heart has hardened into something cold and unmovable. The greedy man discovers that his wealth has left him empty. The bitter man wakes one day to realize that no one stands beside him. These are not merely misfortunes, they are the natural outcome of what was planted long ago. And yet there is hope, because the soil does not ask questions, it only grows what is planted. If you do not like what is growing, you can plant something new. You can choose honesty instead of deception. You can choose kindness instead of cruelty. You can choose faith instead of fear. But do not wait too long. A harvest always comes, and what is planted in one season cannot be undone in another. There is a question that lingers in the hearts of many. Why does God allow people to suffer the consequences of their own actions? Why does He not intervene before they ruin themselves? If He is all-powerful, why does He allow the proud to collapse under the weight of their own arrogance, the deceitful to become trapped in their own lies, the selfish to choke on their own greed? It is not cruelty, it is not indifference, it is something far more deliberate. To remove the consequences of a person's actions is to remove their ability to grow. A man cannot be saved from himself if he refuses to see what he has become. A child who never experiences the pain of fire will never learn to avoid it. A fool who is rescued from his mistakes without consequence will never cease to make them. This is why God does not shield people from the results of what they sow. He lets them see, lets them feel, lets them taste the fruit of their own planting. Not because He takes pleasure in their suffering, but because suffering is often the only teacher we are willing to listen to. We believe we want rescue, but what we truly need is revelation. If a man sows lies and yet prospers, what will he learn? That deception is profitable, that truth is unnecessary, that he is the master of his own fate. If a man sows hatred and yet finds himself surrounded by friends, what will he believe? That cruelty has no cost, that kindness is weakness, that love can be ignored without consequence. But when the harvest comes, when the liar is caught in his own web, when the bitter man finds himself alone, when the greedy man discovers that his riches have left him hollow, then, and only then, does he stop to ask, how did I get here? And that is the moment when change becomes possible. The law of sowing and reaping is not merely about justice, it is about awakening. If a man is allowed to reap the rewards of righteousness, he learns that goodness is worth pursuing. If he is allowed to reap the pain of his own sin, he learns that destruction follows where he walks. In both cases, God is not punishing, He is revealing. There are many who pray for escape from the consequences of their choices, but a greater mercy than escape is understanding. If you remove the consequence, you remove the lesson. If you remove the lesson, you remove the possibility of change. This is why God allows men to feel the weight of their own decisions, not to destroy them, but to wake them up. And so the question is not, why does God let this happen? The real question is, what is He trying to show me? Because the harvest is not the end of the story. It is an invitation to stop, to reflect, to plant something new. And those who refuse that invitation, they will only continue to plant the same seeds, and the harvest will come again and again, until they understand. There is a cruel illusion in the mind of man that tells him his past has locked him into a future he cannot escape, that because he has sown poorly, he must now live forever in the shadow of his own choices. It is a lie that chains people to regret, convincing them that what has been planted can never be undone. But the truth is this: you are always planting, always. The past may have shaped you, but it does not own you. The ground beneath your feet is still open, waiting for the seeds of today. And the greatest deception is believing that because you have once sown poorly, you are bound to continue. You are not. If you have sown dishonesty, start sowing truth. If you have sown selfishness, start sowing generosity. If you have sown bitterness, start sowing kindness. If you have sown doubt, start sowing faith. It will not change overnight. The harvest does not come the moment the seed is in the ground, but it will come. There is a process to growth, and it requires patience. A man who has spent years destroying his own field cannot expect that by planting one seed of goodness, he will wake the next morning to an orchard. But he must plant anyway, because in time, what he sows now will outgrow what he has sown before. This is the mistake many make. They give up before the first green shoots appear. They say, "I have changed, but nothing is different," and so they stop. They do not realize that the same law that ensured their destruction when they sowed poorly will now ensure their blessing if they continue to sow well. Do not be deceived. Just as evil brings ruin, so does goodness bring reward. Every day, with every action, you are shaping the harvest that will come, and there is no seed too small to matter. A single word spoken in truth can begin to untangle years of deception. A single act of kindness can begin to thaw the coldest of hearts. A single prayer whispered in faith can shift the course of a man's destiny. But you must plant. There is a story of two men who each inherited a field. One let his field grow wild, thinking that the land would take care of itself. He did not pull the weeds, he did not clear the rocks, he did not plant with intention. When the harvest came, it was one of thorns and emptiness. The other man understood that the land would only give him what he put into it. He labored, he planted, he waited. His work did not show immediately, but in time, the field became a garden of abundance. You have been given a field, and what you do with it will determine what grows there. It is not too late to uproot what should not be there. It is not too late to plant what should have been planted long ago. But the longer you wait, the more overgrown the land will become. And so the only question that remains is, what will you sow today? Because the law does not change. The harvest will come. And when it does, will you rejoice or will you grieve? One of the greatest tests of faith is time. We expect justice to be immediate. We expect blessings to be instant. We assume that if we plant today, we should see the harvest tomorrow. And when that does not happen, we begin to doubt. We question whether the law of sowing and reaping is real. But patience is the bridge between planting and harvest. A seed does not sprout the moment it touches the soil. It must be buried, hidden, left in darkness. It must endure the seasons, the heat of the sun, the cold of the night, the pressure of the earth pressing down on it. And for a time it seems as if nothing is happening, but beneath the soil transformation is taking place. And so it is with life. The liar who has spent years building his deception may continue to prosper for a time. The corrupt man who has built his empire on manipulation may continue to rise for a time. The selfish man who tramples others to get ahead may continue to gain for a time. And this is where the impatient lose their faith. They see the wicked thriving and assume that justice has failed. They see the righteous struggling and assume that goodness does not matter. They do not realize that the harvest has not yet come, but it will. No man escapes the seeds he has planted. The only question is when those seeds will break through the surface. Some harvests come quickly, others take years. Some do not appear until the very end of a man's life, and some will not be revealed until eternity itself. This is why patience is not just a virtue, it is a necessity. If you sow righteousness and expect an immediate reward, you will grow weary. You will look at those who prosper through deceit and wonder if you have been a fool. You will be tempted to abandon your path. But patience is the weapon that keeps you steady. Consider the farmer. He does not dig up the seed each day to check if it is growing. He does not shout at the soil in frustration. He knows that time is part of the process. He waters, he waits, he trusts, and then in due season, the harvest arrives. The problem with most people is not that they do not plant, but that they do not wait long enough to see the results. They do what is right for a short while, but when they do not see instant blessings, they return to old ways. They become impatient with God's timing and take matters into their own hands. How many people have abandoned their calling because they could not endure the waiting? How many have returned to old sins because righteousness did not pay off quickly enough? But God is never late. The reason justice often seems delayed is because God is patient, even with the wicked. He gives them time to change, time to repent, time to wake up before their destruction arrives. And those who mistake God's patience for his approval will find out too late that justice delayed is not justice denied. And the same is true for those who do good. Many of the greatest rewards in life do not come immediately. A person may sow kindness for years before receiving it in return. A person may live in honesty and integrity before their reputation is honored. A person may struggle in faithfulness before their prayers are answered. But when the harvest does come, it comes in full. Because the law of sowing and reaping is not a trickle, it is an overwhelming flood. A man who plants goodness does not just receive a single blessing, he receives a life transformed. A person who sows discipline does not just reap small progress, he reaps a future he never imagined possible. And this is why patience is so important, because without it, you will walk away just before the harvest arrives. You may be in a season of waiting right now. You may be wondering if your choices matter, if your sacrifices have been worth it, if your pain has purpose. Hold the line. Stay steady. The seeds you have planted are not dead, they are only unseen. And one day, when the time is right, when the season is ready, when you have been prepared for what is coming, the harvest will break through, and on that day, you will see that nothing was wasted. Faith is easy when life is fair, when good deeds are rewarded swiftly, when evil collapses upon itself, when justice is obvious and immediate. Trusting in God's plan requires no great effort, but faith is not tested in seasons of clarity, it is tested in the waiting. Because justice, in God's hands, is not bound by our sense of urgency. We live in a world that demands instant results. We expect a cause to be followed immediately by an effect, a crime to be punished the moment it is committed, and righteousness to be rewarded as soon as it is practiced. And when this does not happen, doubt creeps in. We begin to ask, why does God delay? Does he not see? Does he not care? But the delay is not a failure of justice, it is a test of faith. To believe in the law of sowing and reaping requires more than an intellectual acceptance of its truth. It requires trust in the unseen, patience in the waiting, and confidence that God is not slow, but strategic. Faith means trusting that no deed is forgotten. Many lose their faith because they believe their goodness has been overlooked. They have sown kindness and received cruelty in return. They have walked in integrity and watched the corrupt rise. They have given generously and yet remain in need. And so they ask, why should I continue? Why should I plant what never seems to grow? But faith knows that God's justice is not measured by our clocks. A man may plant a seed today and see no movement for years, but beneath the surface, the roots are growing. The deeper the foundation, the greater the structure it will support. The longer the waiting, the greater the harvest. And so, to those who have been faithful but have not yet seen their reward, do not abandon the field. Do not believe the lie that your labor is wasted. The same God who commands the seasons, who tells the sun when to rise and the stars when to shine, has not lost track of what you have sown. Every prayer, every act of love, every sacrifice, made in silence, it is all counted. Faith does not demand immediate proof. It believes even in the absence of visible results. Faith means accepting that God's justice is different from ours. We expect justice to take a certain form. We want to see the wicked suffer in a way that satisfies our sense of fairness. We want our enemies to experience their own cruelty, to face the consequences in a way that we can witness. But faith means trusting that God's justice is not driven by our desire for revenge. It is driven by His perfect wisdom. There are those who hurt others and seem to walk free. There are those who mock righteousness and yet prosper. There are those who manipulate, deceive, and destroy, and yet live in comfort. And in our impatience, we cry out, "Where is justice?" But God sees beyond what we can see. He does not only punish outward actions, He judges the condition of the soul. A man may live in luxury, but be a prisoner of his own corruption. A woman may deceive the world, but cannot escape the truth of her own conscience. There is no peace for the wicked, even when the world does not see their suffering. And for those who repent, those who turn from their ways and seek redemption, should they be condemned because we desire to see them suffer? Or should we rejoice that mercy, which we ourselves have needed, has been extended? Faith means trusting that God does not make mistakes in judgment. Faith means believing that in the end all will be made right. We do not live for this world alone. If our faith depended solely on what happens in this life, then we would be no different from those who believe justice is random. But we believe in a greater truth, that all things will be made right in time. Some justice comes swiftly, in ways that satisfy our understanding. Some justice takes longer, unfolding in ways we do not expect. And some justice will not be seen until the final reckoning, when every hidden deed is revealed, when every unrepented sin is exposed, and when every faithful act is honored. If you struggle with the waiting, know this: you are not alone. The faithful have always waited. They have endured mockery, suffering, and loss, but they held on, not because they saw the harvest immediately, but because they believed in the one who never fails to bring it. And so I ask you, do you trust Him? Do you believe that your faithfulness will not be in vain? Do you believe that He will bring justice even if you cannot see it today? Because whether you believe or not, the law remains, the harvest will come, and those who trust will not be disappointed. There is a moment in every person's life when they stand among the fields of their own making. They look around and they see the harvest. Some see abundance, relationships full of trust, a mind filled with peace, a spirit anchored in faith. Others see barrenness, friendships destroyed by selfishness, a heart hardened by bitterness, a life shaped by compromise. And in that moment they realize, this is the result of what I have planted. But what happens next is where the true test begins, because the truth of sowing and reaping does not simply apply to the past. It applies to the present and the future. Some will look at the wreckage of their choices and believe that all is lost. They will say, "I have already ruined my field. It is too late to change," but it is never too late to plant something new. Others will look at their good harvest and believe that they have done enough, that they no longer need to tend the soil, but a field left untended will soon be overrun by weeds. This is why the law of sowing and reaping never stops. It does not ask what you did yesterday, it asks what you are doing today. And so, at this moment, wherever you stand in life, you must ask yourself, what seeds am I planting now in my thoughts? Am I feeding my mind with truth, or am I letting doubt and fear take root? In my words, am I speaking life, or am I tearing down? In my actions, am I choosing righteousness, or am I taking shortcuts? Every moment is an opportunity to plant. Every decision is a seed in the ground. Do not be deceived. The harvest always comes. Some may still cling to the belief that they can escape the consequences of what they plant. They will point to the wicked who prosper, the corrupt who walk freely, the deceitful who rise in power. They will say, "If sowing and reaping is real, why do they not fall?" But their fall has already begun, because judgment does not always come in the form we expect. Sometimes it is immediate, exposed, undeniable, unmistakable, but more often it is slow, silent, unseen by human eyes. A man does not always reap in the way the world understands. Sometimes the real punishment is what he becomes. The liar becomes incapable of telling the truth, even to himself. The betrayer surrounds himself with people just as faithless as he is. The greedy man lives in constant fear that what he has taken will be taken from him. They may appear strong, but they are rotting from within. And for those who do good but do not yet see the reward, the harvest is coming. If you do not like the harvest, change the seeds. Some will say, "But I have already made mistakes. I have already sown badly. What hope do I have?" The answer is simple. Start planting differently. A man who has spent years lying can begin to speak truth today. A woman who has held on to bitterness can choose to forgive today. A person who has lived selfishly can begin to give today. The past may have shaped you, but it does not have to define you. You are always planting. It is easy to look at the size of the field and despair, to say, "There is too much damage, too much ruin. What good will one small seed do?" But one seed becomes a tree, and a tree in time becomes a forest. What you plant today may not seem like much. It may go unnoticed, it may feel insignificant, but time will prove otherwise. And so, start today. If you have been planting in faith but have not yet seen results, do not give up. The harvest is not cancelled just because it has not yet appeared. God has not forgotten what you have planted. If you have been planting in darkness, hoping to escape the consequences, turn back now. The longer you wait, the deeper the roots grow. And once the harvest comes, it will not ask for permission. The final truth: your future is being shaped right now. Many people believe their future is waiting for them, that one day it will simply arrive, like a train pulling into a station. But the future is not waiting, it is growing. Right now, under the surface, beyond sight. The choices you make today are shaping the life you will live tomorrow. And so I leave you with this question: what kind of harvest do you want to reap? Because whether you are ready or not, the harvest will come. And when it does, may you not stand in regret, but in joy.